There we go. No fader, hard cut out of the music and into the stream. Welcome everybody. Hey Barry, hey Mac, how are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Hey.
Oh, hello. I think you guys are separated this time. One in New York, one out in the outskirts. Fully distributed. Well, thank you for joining me. I think we're kicking off this a little bit later than usual. Thank you folks in the chat. Thank you for joining us and waiting. I think we got a couple hundred of folks chiming in. So yeah, this is the July Town Hall, a good instance to clear up a little bit on the latest updates, news, and the questions that the community has been sharing across all channels, of course, on XTG. We really appreciate that. We did a compilation of most of the things that y'all asked, both for a Q&A at the end, and then just to map out like the questions and the things we go over today. So, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. So pick your person here who starts or who kicks it off. But you want to give me a quick update of what's going on with Cosmos, what has changed, where are the changes coming from?
Yeah, I can give a recap, although I assume everybody here has the context. So I think it's helpful to start just with the first 6 months, right? 6 months ago, Skip, our previous company, was acquired by the ICF to form ICL, now Cosmos Labs. It's a rebrand that we're coming up with. And in those 6 months, we tried to do a couple things, right? The first and the primary goal throughout all of it was value accrual to Atom and the growth of the Cosmos ecosystem. To begin, we started by rebuilding IBC into a fully new version called IBC Eureka that connected IBC to every other ecosystem, and starting with Ethereum. We launched that right at the same time that Babylon shipped. And we saw Lombard, all the different BTC issuers adopt it. We've seen sort of recent adoption with Alice. And during that time, we said to ourselves, how can we supercharge this, right? How can we supercharge Cosmos and usage of IBC Eureka and usage of IBC in general? And the idea that we had at the time was, well, we can just launch a smart contract ecosystem on the hub itself, right? And have applications deploy there. Over the last 3 months, so this was sort of decided about 3 months ago, we started work on it about 3 months ago. We've been building up relationships with different people in the Cosmos ecosystem, different teams, Stride included, to prepare for a on-chain ecosystem on the Cosmos hub that would basically drive Eureka usage and use Eureka as a cross-chain or multi-chain development platform. That has changed, right? And that was the big announcement, is that we're not shipping that EVM. I think the main thing to understand is that it's not a question of we're not doing that. It's actually a question of we found something else that is much more exciting that we need to act on now, and that we need to have full focus to execute on to have a chance at winning, which is the major shift in the crypto market and in the blockchain market and in the world, that businesses are coming on chain. Finally, they are actually coming on chain, and in a way that we've never seen for the past 7 years of this industry. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to capture that. And we made the decision that we need to be fully focused on that if we want to go after that, because that is the holy grail, not building another EVM. But we'll get into it, I assume.
Yeah, 100%. You want to add some comments in there, Barry?
Yeah. I think Mag captured it well. One of the things that I think is really important to address is like some of the reasoning about kind of why, since there's been a lot of commentary around it. As Mag said, we're sort of getting pulled in a different direction, and that's one huge part of it. Another huge part of it is we made some progress, met a bunch of customers, pitched a ton of teams on building on the Cosmos EVM, both teams that are currently in the Cosmos ecosystem, like Stride, who know us well, who know IBC well, and teams that are building elsewhere, Base, Hyperliquid, Solana, on the vision that we had for the Cosmos Hub. We hadn't fully shipped it yet, but on this idea of being a developer platform that through a deep integration of sort of more futuristic versions of IBC, that we could be a platform that could connect everywhere, that could onboard assets and users instantly from anywhere and allow developers to build kind of next generation cross-chain applications. It's something that we were initially really excited about because it's something we've seen some of in the Cosmos ecosystem. Mars, for example, has kind of cross-chain collateralized lending, which is the only kind of protocol like that exists anywhere in crypto and is much more efficient as a result. And we were talking to some teams who had a lot of really interesting ideas around ways that you could use this to have better yields on kind of yield generation platforms. Stride was working on this, sort of a new DEX that could have better experiences across more assets and potentially compete with bridges. So some early signs, but what we found as we talked to more and more of those teams and investors in those markets is that like the pitch wasn't really landing all that well for people who weren't already deeply invested in the Cosmos ecosystem. So for teams like Stride and folks coming from other Cosmos protocols, we had good fit around that. But for others, we didn't. And it was much more clear to a lot of developers, okay, how they could build a better application or get better distribution by starting out on Hyperliquid than starting out on the Cosmos Hub and this idea of this kind of multi-chain platform. And so we were sort of seeing that play out in the market. And at the same time, the other thing that we were seeing was the market has seen a lot of new chains launch over the last 3-6 months, and has seen some really exciting launches start to putter out a little bit and not go as well as they were going before. Things like, Barachain, like we love the team there. The last couple months have been really hard for them. Their TVL is going away. Their bridge TVL is going away. Their protocols are redeploying elsewhere. And so we were looking at this combination of things of saying, hey, like there are teams out there that spend hundreds of millions of dollars on incentives that, frankly, we can't afford to spend. There are teams who we're talking to who we don't see the value in what we're trying to build, which can take a long time, a lot of money to fully build out the vision. And at the same time, we're getting pulled towards providing the best-in-class EVM L1 stack for more mature teams, world builders, teams that want to build their own ecosystems, financial institutions, these kinds of players. And it really just felt like, shit, we are running in the wrong direction here. We have something that could potentially work if we go and focus on it. And we have this other thing that it feels like we're trying to force into the world. And so kind of between those two, it felt really clear to us where we needed to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll do a follow-up on that, which is a keyword that you're giving is focus. How does it look for us and for Cosmos? Specifically, the hub, the stack, to focus on these builders. How is that different from maybe just doing a little bit of everything here, doing contracts on the hub and still doing the hub, the stack at the same time? What can we do or achieve by just doubling down on it?
Yeah. I can speak to that super quickly, which is like, the first thing I think to understand is focus doesn't mean closing off the ecosystem. Like the Cosmos stack is going to remain open for anyone to build, and it's deeply customizable, which means anyone can build anything. And we're going to continue to see tons of teams adopt it. But what it means is we're not going to try to be everything to everyone, right? Like we were trying to build the best-in-class bridge, a unique L1 smart contract platform, a full, deeply customizable, super performant L1 stack. Each of these things required a lot of different work, a lots of different focuses, lots of different resources, and we were getting pulled in a ton of different directions. And so now really what we're doing is focusing all of our resources onto one goal, which is getting the best businesses in the world and these real like world builder scale protocols to build their chains on our stack. And then working everything backwards from that. All of the things that we invest in across services, what problems that we potentially want to solve, like confidentiality for on-chain data or compute for some of the banks and payment networks who we're talking to, starting to use, the hub or IBC to distribute like best-in-class services to these folks. Think Safe, Chainlink, these kinds of players that have real kind of institutional scale brands. And it means, we're not competing with a lot of other chains and folks in Cosmos. So if people want to build smart contracts, whether they want to do it with EVM or Move or, CosmWasm, there's a ton of options for that. Cosmos, Neutron, Ripple, TAC, Initia, all sorts of different places. And if folks want to build their own ecosystems or their own worlds or really bring a web scale business on chain, we're going to work with those folks more directly to make sure they can do that in Cosmos.
Any plus 2 or 2 cents here, Mac, for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one way you can understand this change is we are changing who our customer is, right? There are different kinds of people in crypto. There are the people on Hyperliquid and Base and Solana who are generally between the ages of 15 years old and 24, male, who like gambling, right? There are also, other groups of people. So, for example, like you can imagine all the people buying XRP and Cardano who are definitely not those people, right? Which is why it can feel very weird to us to try to understand, like, wait, why is Ripple worth $130 billion or something like that? And what we have realized is it does not make sense for us to go after the same customers as Base and Solana, right? This is the crypto Twitter circle. This is, all the people who want to see, meme coins and things like that. Like, it doesn't make sense to try to be a second best at these things. What we have always appealed to as the number one option, unclouded by anything in the history of Cosmos, is as the best stack to build an L1, right? And who wants to build L1s? Real businesses. And like, you don't need to like trust me on this, right? Like, look at the existing RWA chains, right? Mantra, which unfortunately didn't do so well recently, but Ondo, Provenance, which has $16 billion of TVL. If you look at, some of these major applications that are now launching their own L1s, like TAC, right? Telegram is a real company, like Ripple, which has a lot of institutional adoption. Like, this is where our customers are, right? These are our customers. And so really what this announcement is saying, we're going to stop trying to be someone else, right? We're going to be Cosmos, except we're going to do it on overdrive. And we're actually going to go to these customers and build what they need and build what they want, right? And what they want to pay for. And, something I see a lot, which is, like institutions don't want blockchains, or, governments don't want blockchains because they're interoperable and open. And that's just not true. Like, I can just like tell you for a fact that that's not true. And also, even if it is true, like, that's exactly what we want to find out, right? We want to find out what parts to the Cosmos stack do we need to add so that we can onboard a government. Those are the questions we should be asking, not how can we steal users from Hyperliquid, right? Like, the questions are, how do we bring the rest of the world on chain on their own terms by working with the largest institutions that have the capacity and the interest in doing so. And I think what you'll see over the next few months is a lot of those initial pilot programs getting started, a lot of that getting kicked off. And, we have the network to sort of start from. And so I think that's really what the change is, right? It's changing who our customer is to people who we think really need to be served by crypto who haven't been served yet.
Thank you. I think that's super impactful and pretty clear to outline at least the reason behind this, and to go a little bit into what the next months look like. We've said and spoken a lot about product exploration and how do we do proactive research and work, like you said, like pilots, to actually build a meaningful roadmap towards this. Why would you say we focus on that bet on saying like, hey, let's not drop a roadmap today. Let's not like drop a big outline of a vision today. Let's do some research and ratify these things.
Yeah. The big thing that we have been really pushing internally with the team, and that I think is important for the community to understand too, is that we are in product exploration and validation mode, right? We don't yet have exact certainty around, okay, what are the things that we're going to be able to build and sell and scale to governments, to the likes of payment networks like MasterCard, to banks, to central banks. Like, we don't actually have perfect clarity around that yet. What we're doing is we're spending a lot of time with those customers. We're spending a lot of time with the Cosmos chains that work closely with those customers today. We're testing out different ideas with them. We're setting up pilot programs. We're getting to a place where they're really bought in and they have clear visions around what they want to build on chain, and we understand them. And we're iterating super, super fast. And that's what startup mode looks like. Trying things, staying humble, not being afraid to pull the plug on certain things, and iterating backwards from a big vision, which we have, which is bringing these incredible businesses on chain and really trying to make IBC the biggest financial network in the world. And we think that's where we're headed, but it's going to take time. And what we don't want to do is come out with some big statement right now around exactly how we're going to do that and what that's going to look like and how it's going to use the hub, and then have to shift it in 2 or 3 months as we learn more and then we sell more of these customers. So our goal is learn, iterate, test, build, and ship as quickly as we possibly can, and do that in the open. And I think a big part of what we've been trying to bring to the Cosmos ecosystem is transparency with the community. And right now we're trying to be transparent about where we're really at in the process.
Appreciate it. Mag, any additions?
No.
No? Awesome. So on that note, for example, you said we're, been working with a lot of teams, and some of the recent ones that have come in, of course, Ripple Attack. We've seen Ondo come in. We've seen teams like Toki doing amazing work in Japan with banks and IBC to replace Swift with Swift. Working with these people and starting to learn from them, how would this be different from services that Cosmos has sucked to offer in the past, like ICS, BSS, be a drop narrative? We have a comment here, I think, from Duck Fam. Nice to have you in the chat, man. Nice to hear from you. Saying like, is this too similar to what we did before, or is this a new take?
I think it's pretty new. I mean, we've never really had a structured go-to-market to these people in Cosmos, right? We've built this stack kind of in isolation, and it happened to be the case that this was the right architecture for a lot of these companies, and they started to adopt it completely organically with no incentivization. So, a conglomerate of Japanese banks is currently using Cosmos and IBC to transfer data between them and transfer assets between them, and collaborating with Swift to offer a seamless Swift to IBC bridge, eventually to replace Swift with IBC in some circumstances. That happened completely without our involvement, right? Which is a very good sign. It's a good sign that we have a stack that is organically being discovered as something that is, really exciting. and gives us a lot of faith that if we actually go and show up and talk to these people and build proper solutions and build the features and products that are necessary for them to extend those use cases, we can accelerate those from being 5-year projects to being 1-year projects, right? Or 6-month projects or 3-month projects. And eventually to build up a reputation for the marginal customer of these are the guys that know how to bring real businesses on chain, understand our concerns, have the right features that we need. And we trust them because Swift worked with them, right? Provenance worked with them. Central banks worked with them. Like that's how you build that reputation. And what I see right now is, it's sort of back to the previous point, everyone's fighting over what they know, right? Everyone knows what it looks like to have an L1 with smart contracts. And everyone's fighting that battle, right? There's so many different L1s, all with EVMs, so many different L2s, all with EVMs, so many different rollups, so many, Validiums. Like everyone's fighting this battle. Like, what's to say that battle is really worth it, right? To me, the right battle to be fighting, it may be less tried and true, right? It may be a little bit more scary. It may be a little bit more unknown because it hasn't been tried, is what does it actually take to get institutions on chain, right? And what does it take to offer them the product that they need versus trying to have your solution and just hammer it into them, which is what I see a lot of other ecosystems doing. Because from what we've understood so far is institutions won't even consider launching an L2 because there's no way they want dependence upon an L1 that's not their own, right? There's legal restrictions that they can't do that. They won't consider launching, a smart contract because they want to own their own infrastructure, and they want to be able to customize the stack to have, proper access controls for their own users, for their safety, right? They want to be able to interoperate with other blockchains that represent other businesses easily and at will, right? Not be fully interoperable, but be selectively interoperable, and to add interop as it makes sense. These are things that we've built already that we take for granted that are actually game changers when it comes to institutional adoption. But there's never been a proper go-to-market strategy to actually explore this and to really talk to these people and to handhold them because they need handholding, right? They're not blockchain experts. They don't know anything about it. And that's what we've discovered, that as we have just dipped our toes into the water, we immediately got TAC, Ripple, Ondo, Babylon. Like we've already validated this to some degree. And this shift really just gives us the chance to focus and double down on that.
Yeah, the thing that I think Mag said at the start, which is really, really important, that I just want to come back to, is that we are really focused on the go-to-market here. We're trying to work backwards from the end goal of actually saying, okay, how do we make the Cosmos ecosystem and IBC the most valuable open financial network in the world? And that means, okay, someday we need central banks issuing, CBDCs in the Cosmos ecosystem. We need commercial banks interoperating with them, settling payments on their own chains or cross-chain. We need payment networks handling volume between different kinds of businesses and consumers all across the world, cross-border, again, on their own chains or through IBC. And that's where we want to go. And so we're starting to get to know those customers now. And we've already seen some of them, as Mag said, on board. And before that, we know that, okay, a lot of these folks are already working with a number of RWA protocols or stablecoin protocols or asset issuance protocols that are built with the Cosmos stack. And we can work really closely with those teams to make sure that they have what they need to bring those people on. We can work with the market leading DeFi protocols that are working with those customers in those verticals in other ecosystems and bring them onto the Cosmos ecosystem. It's very, very customer driven. It's very go-to-market driven. And it's not like working backwards from just something that we want to, do because we heard about it, right? Or something that might drive value to Atom. Like we're starting with the user and the go-to-market, not monetization. I think that's really different than ICS and PSS and these things in the past, where really we were starting from like, okay, well, we have this blockchain and like, how can we make it more useful? And people were like, well, we can like use the security, but people clearly didn't ask that many customers if they would actually pay for it or what problem that would actually solve for them. And now we're seeing eigenlayer pivot right into doing cloud infrastructure. And we've seen ICS and PSS really struggle with adoption over the past few years. We're building a product and a sales and a go-to-market motion that works backwards from actually serving these customers and building that long-term vision instead of forwards from like, how do we monetize? And that's going to allow us to monetize by creating value there. Banks, stablecoin issuers, these, world building DeFi protocols, they're all going to be interested in paying for different things. And one thing that we're really committed to is still making sure that Atom is the monetization layer for Cosmos, the monetization layer for everything that we do. Whether that's, services and routing that are using Atom powered fees or payments that enterprise customers make to us that we use to buy Atom, or whether it's using Atom for collateral for something, that's how we're thinking about where we want the value to accrue long term. But we're going to be flexible with how we get there because we want to make sure we're doing a good job of serving the customer first. Because if we don't do that, then any kind of idea there isn't going to matter.
And to add like 2 cents there, like if before the monetization usually was tied to like a mechanic or a product exclusively, right? So ICS, for example, right? Like if you're a bank and you want to control your infra and we want people to onboard there, probably ICS is not the best way to monetize them. There's other infra services that have Stack can offer, I don't know, indexers, oracles, and then they monetize to Atom, and that's better because they need that support or the things that they don't want to develop themselves. And then for other folks like DeFi protocols or new chains that are less mature and need some help running the infra, ICS might be great for them. And that's what's important as well. Like these protocols are like, it's not a simple solution for everybody of like, hey, we hook this thing up and you monetize everything in the same way. It needs a lot of care per each customer.
Yeah. And I think like, ICS specifically, I think left out just the core thing that people want Cosmos for, which is sovereignty, right? There was some degree of dependence. And I think that struck a lot of people in a way that they didn't like, right? And that's why I think we've seen, roll-ups by a large margin still underperform Cosmos when it comes to sort of adoption of tech stacks. I think the other thing is, if you stop at a moment in time right now and you think about, okay, like take stock of where Cosmos is, right? It's an ecosystem that has a stack with over 150 chains, right? No other stack has even close to this. Not OP stack, not AVAX, nothing is close, right? We're still years ahead in terms of adoption. Some of those chains are the largest chains in crypto, right? Like Binance Smart Chain and, Ondo and et cetera, et cetera. I could go through the whole list. We have a very large treasury, which gives us a tremendous amount of runway. And we have a token that has historically done basically nothing, right? And still has like not done much in terms of value accrual and is worth, is a top 100 token. Starting from that point, knowing what we know now from the mistakes, we're in a very strong position to go after what we want to go after with institutions. Because one, institutions value longevity. We've been around for 6 years, right? No one else can really say this. We offer a holistic solution for building an actual blockchain versus just a component, or a piece of infrastructure. That's important to these people. And we have all the right signals of what an institution would look for and say, this makes sense. These guys have been around for 6 years, right? They have a very valuable core asset. They have launched applications on top of their blockchain that have scaled to billions of dollars, right? And they also have, very understandable, well-documented, well-tested pieces of the stack that fit into it. Like if I'm an institution, that's the pitch, right? That's what I'm excited about. And I think that's what we've seen so far. And I think there are just some missing pieces that we have yet to fill in, right? There's like missing pieces around actually productionalizing pieces of the stack so that people can customize it in the ways they want, right? Adding things like KYC and AML, which let institutions actually onboard real customers. By adding the proper kind of wallet support with their own OAuth systems, right? So if you're Morgan Stanley and you want a blockchain, you're not going to have Kepler, unfortunately. You're going to have Morgan Stanley login, right? And that's going to create you a wallet, most likely. There's very basic things that I think we just haven't explored. And I think taking stock of just where things are now, we're in a very good position, right? And this is letting go of all the trauma of people freaking out on crypto Twitter, which ultimately doesn't matter to institutions. They don't look at that at all, right? They have no knowledge of what's going on in Atom governance or the community. They're just looking for solutions, right? And I think from that perspective, we're very well set up.
Appreciate it, and maybe let me turn it towards the community as well after we move on to the Q&A list that we have. There's a lot of folks that are, yes, trying to understand the news, trying to get their bearings. Some folks are, of course, changing their work because of this. What would you say to them? How do you help them navigate this to where best place themselves to support this?
Yeah. I mean, the big thing is that like changes are hard. And when expectations change, especially around platforms, it can affect other people. For us, the big thing that we want, that we've wanted for years and that we're going to keep working towards, is actually trying to make Cosmos the home for the best businesses in the world and for the biggest financial institutions in the world and for the world's value flow and asset issuance. And we felt like we were going in the wrong direction to do that. And we care super deeply and we work super hard to try to make this happen. And so we felt like we had to make a change. We don't like that it affects people negatively, especially the builders who were planning on building on the Cosmos Hub, Stride and Stargaze. And so we're doing our best right now to support them through this transition, both in terms of helping them to find other places to build, continuing to support them financially to make that transition. We're investors in Stride, and we're going to continue to be investors there. But we hope that as a result of kind of making this change and making this transition, that we're able to do a much better job setting expectations with teams, right? Whether you are an app builder and we can help you go and find all of the 10, 15, 20 different Cosmos ecosystem chains where you could go and build and specialize in different things and who to work with there across TAC, Ripple, Neutron, and so on. Whether you're a chain builder and we can help you actually figure out, okay, how can the stack support you? Whether you're a financial institution, we figure, okay, how can we actually work with you to make sure that you have the control that you need across the stack, or a community member, right? And we help you figure out how you can participate in creating the culture that we need to have around the Cosmos ecosystem. We've been here for years. We've gone through a ton of changes ourselves and are still super new to this new role and trying to operate in it in the last 6 months. And I think we're really excited about trying to simplify now and trying to work on fewer things and win fewer kinds of customers, and start there and expand. Because for so long, Cosmos has been trying to do so many things at the same time, and it's just led to a lot of noise. We're really excited about kind of narrowing scope and having one vision and one customer and really going after it.
Appreciate it. I'll swing it into the community Q&A. I see a lot of folks in here. Cryptorium, Joe saying hi. Hello, Joe. Thank you for popping by. You know, probably Wicked Seed and everybody's in here as well. We have some that came in through the forum. So folks, again, shoot them in the chat, but also we have a list of everybody that submitted already. If they were already in the list that we treated so far, I cut them because we talked about it. Cosmos EVM stack, is it still being developed for people to build L1 chains on EVM?
Yes. It's still yeah, I mean, it's still a huge priority. It's something that we see immediate customer demand for in terms of Ripple, Babylon, the Telegram application chain, Ondo. All of these folks want to be EVM compatible. It's something that we're seeing as a huge leverage point for driving conversations with teams that are building DeFi protocols in other ecosystems and spaces. Folks who are currently building on the OP stack, have a bunch of reasons that they want to be L1s or want to be more sovereign or have their own ecosystem. The super chain, if it's really just base, turns out not to be such a great thing. And so they're able to have conversations with us because we have an EVM compatible solution now. And longer term, a huge percentage of the private blockchains that have been built over the past few years have been built on Hyperledger Bazoo, which is the EVM compatible Hyperledger version. And so we see huge demand for it across kind of every stage of the go-to-market that we want to go after. And so we're going to continue prioritizing it for all of those customers.
Awesome. Great to hear. And is IBC Eureka expanding more? When Sol, when Hyper, when others?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that we have a deep thesis on is that interoperability, which is uniquely good on L1s, fast finality L1s, is going to be a huge selling point for any business that comes on chain. I mean, it's a selling point of the traditional internet. That's sort of what it is. And what we're realizing is that, we're getting a run for our money from some of these newer bridges like Layer 0. And, we need to expand the amount of places that IBC Eureka can connect to so that we can provide a best-in-class solution. Because IBC and its fundamentals is still superior, it's cheaper, faster, and it has much better security properties. But that's something that we're going to be doubling down on. And by not shipping the EVM, we're going to be able to have the focus to actually start to reinvest into IBC Eureka and reinvest into the stack so that we can bring it back up to par and then exceed. Because I think we know the roadmap to do this. It's just a question of execution.
Perfect. We have more questions. I also see Sophon in the chat. Sophos, sorry. Asking, a name call out. Nick asked, do you think there is a future where Ethereum network effect is so strong that EVM L1 suddenly say, I want to become an L2 too?
No.
Hardball. Hardball.
Yeah. We definitely don't see any evidence of this yet. There have been some chains that have made the transition from L1 to L2, and it hasn't really helped them in any way. Being in Ethereum L2 doesn't give you access to Ethereum users or Ethereum capital. And some people think it will if they're struggling elsewhere, and then they go and they find out and it doesn't. We're seeing a huge push in the opposite direction where a lot of people realized, they made a bunch of compromises to be OP stacks and not OP hacks, or to use the Arbitrum Orbit stack. And all of those things are extremely expensive, and not in a way where teams understand what the fixed cost is, right? And they can plan it and pay for it the way you do with most software, but where the cost massively scales as they scale, and taking huge percentages of sequencer revenue and protocol revenue and things like that. And so we actually see a big push in the opposite direction of a lot of things looking to become their own L1s, or L2s in other ecosystems, and looking to switch to stacks that look more like Cosmos, that are much more customizable. So it's definitely not something we've seen, and not something where I can tell a story where it happens. I think also a lot of the Ethereum L2s are super worried right now that Ethereum is going to start taking scaling seriously and then get gobbled up by it.
Yeah, I think this is not my first cycle, and every single cycle, everyone argues, oh my God, L1s don't make sense. Everyone's going to be an L2. Everyone's going to be a parachain, which is what they were arguing back in 2019. Everyone's going to be, Ethereum smart contract. Everyone's going to be something on Celestia. It's going to be a minute. There's so many ways of building, but every single cycle, one thing has always been true, which is the biggest thing are always L1s, right? And that has never changed. And there's no reason to believe that it will. The largest things in crypto are L1s: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Cosmos Hub. People want to be the largest thing. And also the benefits of L1 are real, right? Yes, it's expensive. Yes, you got to run a validator set. Yes, you got to coordinate with people and do stuff like that. But the benefits of fast finality, owning your infrastructure, being able to fully customize vastly outweigh that. And so we just see people keep picking it, right? Regardless of how well Cosmos markets itself, which I would argue, historically has not been the best. People just keep choosing it. And we feel very confident that's a real demand, right? That's not something propped up.
Let me move it to Holy Folly. How could the hub monetize interchain services? Explain a little bit more, because that's a little bit unclear. Maybe run through some quick examples.
I mean, there's a bunch of different ways, both directly in terms of fees and bridging fees or routing fees, but also indirectly. I mean, one of the things that we see a huge demand for right now is just cross-chain swapping, and especially cross-chain transfers of stablecoins into and out of the Cosmos ecosystem. And Skip Go is used for cross-chain stablecoin transfers between ecosystems that have nothing to do with Cosmos, right? Between Solana and Base, we do tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars of volume there, depending on the month. And the way we kind of think about it is, look, anywhere where we can build infrastructure or a product that people want to use, there's going to be a way to drive that value back to Atom. I think the big thing is we're not really trying to monetize the hub in particular, right? The hub is potentially going to have a role, and we'll discover that role as we work with more customers if it really makes sense to. And right now we have some teams that route IBC transactions through the hub with Eureka, some teams that connect to Ethereum directly. All of these things can accrue value back to Atom. There's not some mystic rule that says, okay, well, Atom can only accrue value from activity on the Cosmos hub. It just doesn't exist. And so we take a much broader view to it.
Awesome. Any 2 cents there, Mag? Otherwise, I'll pass it off to the next one.
Go to the next one.
We got a what about Cosm Wasm? Should we enable Cosm Wasm on the hub next?
Yeah, I see this get discussed a lot. The purpose of not doing the Cosmos Hub EVM is not that it was an EVM. It's that we actually don't want to spend all of our company resources building a successful smart contract platform on the hub, when in reality the real business, right, and the path to 100x growth is by bringing in and expanding on our current adoption elsewhere. So from that lens, the Cosmos on the hub doesn't make sense to bet on as a strategic direction. We did just announce that we are now working with Neutron very closely to maintain Cosmos. We're also working with Neutron closely as an ecosystem to help move some of the people who wanted to build on the Hub EVM there. I think Neutron's really heating up in many different ways. I'm very excited about it. And there are also many, many EVM ecosystems in Cosmos now, like Ripple sidechain, TAC, Babylon, that are running their own programs to encourage on-chain application development. These are our customers, right? And so we're highly incentivized to move applications to these and have them be successful where it makes sense. So I think we're shifting our strategy from being less our own on-chain ecosystem that we are building on, building smart contracts for, and more to encouraging these things to flourish, right? And monetizing that directly for Atom, which we find is just a much better approach.
Awesome. Sorry, you wanted to chime in?
Not really. No, I think Mag. I was gonna say something, but it's fine.
No, that's good. Thank you. One from Tony. Tony, thank you as well for popping by and dropping a question. Why did it happen so fast? Took us by surprise.
Yeah, man. It did happen fast. We tend to think, just in general, that doing things fast is better than doing things slow when you know what you're going to do. And so actually, from my perspective, it happened way too slowly. I think we probably could have made the decision 6 weeks ago and saved ourselves some time. But like one of the things that we think about a lot is that you can't unscramble an egg, right? And we were about to ship a layer 1 blockchain, and we met with, in the 2 weeks leading up to it, tons of different teams and investors, and we're having all of these pitch conversations that I was talking about earlier, and speaking to infrastructure providers about what it would cost. And we realized, shit, okay, if we want to have any chance of making this work, any chance at all, we need enormous confidence that we're going to be able to offer a 10x cross-chain user experience, which we did a bunch of engineering research and really, we got confidence that there's huge unlocks in cross-chain, but they're probably not going to happen at the on-chain layer that we were going to be attacking with the hub. We realized, oh shit, okay, if we really need to pay for this infrastructure, these asset issuers, these wallets, and we need to help fund teams, because investors are not funding teams anywhere right now that are doing anything other than building chains. We're going to need to spend $50 million a year, $50 million a year. And teams that don't have that much we've seen in the market, shutting down, dying, literally pivoting away. They launched, they paid a bunch of market makers for a bunch of liquidity, and then nothing happened, and then they died. And so we got to a lot of confidence that we were going over a cliff. We were going in the wrong direction. And so when we got to that point, it's either we keep going in this direction, we waste time, we waste money, we cost more trust, or we just say, okay, it's going to be painful, but we rip the Band-Aid off, we make the change faster, and we start exploring alternatives sooner. And working from this goal of bringing all the best businesses in the world on chain and seeing the traction that we're already getting with other L1s building on the stack, and the conversations that have started just as a result of us announcing it. And a ton of new stablecoin L1s are reaching out to us and talking to us now. We feel really good about the decision. We just feel like we should have made it faster. So it's fast, but it probably should have been much faster. We're 3 months behind.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think it's worth saying that we have internally 100% confidence, extreme confidence, that we made the right decision here. And I understand it's shocking and it's difficult, and it was extremely difficult for me too, to let down these teams that I knew. But I think one thing that's worth noting is we didn't abandon these teams. We really didn't, right? We are still huge investors in Stride. We promised them a major investment. We fully followed through that investment. We added a lock to our tokens to keep staying invested. We still are offering to fulfill our funding commitments for some of the other applications. And we have very good relationships with these teams. We're not abandoning them or leaving them out to dust. We're helping connect them to new ecosystems, because that's not how we roll. We don't just switch on a dime and then leave everybody hanging. We're actually following through with all the things that we said we would do. And I think that's really important. because a lot of the public narrative is untrustworthy. No, we're not. Like, we're fulfilling all of our funding commitments. We are very honest by the fact that about the fact that we are exploring things and we're going to make changes. And Cosmos, as it's been going for the past 6 years, is no longer working. That means we're going to have to take a couple shots on goal. The first one might not be right? And that's what happened. But we have confidence that it wasn't right. And what matters now is not whether we should have realized it sooner or later. What matters now is that now that we have confidence in something that we think will work, how do we execute against that until we know for a fact that it is or it's not going to work? And you can have you have our promise that we are going to do exactly that, as we have been for the EVM and as we have been for everything else that we've tried. So that's just to say that, as difficult as it is, this is a normal part of redefining a strategy, right? Barry and I were hired here, and Nico, to rebuild Cosmos with a new strategy and something that works. The chances that we got it right within the first 6 months are extremely low because we're new at this too, right? And we're doing our absolute best, and we're doing market research. We're trying things, talking to teams, raising money, funding different things. The chances that now we have something right after 6 months of learning and shipping a lot and making a lot of mistakes is much higher, in my opinion. And we feel unified around this being the right direction and someplace that will cause, much larger growth than competing to be the next Hyperliquid. So I think that's just the truth, right? And I think it's worth it to be fully upfront about that, because it's important for us to set the expectations.
Yeah, I think expectation setting is a good priority as well, and part of being hyper transparent on the process. Really, really appreciate that. I even see like Sisla in the chat. Hey, Sisla, saying like teams on the ecosystem, have capitalized on these opportunities a lot, and they know how to shift and take advantage of this. And if they see this new direction and this focus, most likely we'll see a lot of these folks thrive. He says, hey, let's power the next Hyperliquid, which is the goal.
Because we powered the first. I think they still use Tendermint.
Yeah, they do. A fork of a fork. But it's built on it. And we're a little bit over. Thank you, folks, for bearing with me and the long question list. Sorry, folks, in the comments and community. Cut it now. We've been going for a little bit of extra. I think we covered 98% of the things that got shot in questions. If there's more, we'll continue to be around as you have us on TG or X. A lot of folks have been saying like, hey, maybe this is not the right frame to send you guys some comments and feedback. Now, just open line, where to reach us, chat with us. We're here for it. That's one of the best changes and advantage, I say, in the last year as well from the team. So I'll just pass it off, Barry, Mag, for folks here that are still navigating this or want to really know what to get excited about for the next months. Give us a closer.
Yeah, I can say some things. So right now, what we're doing, the roadmap for the next 3 months is beginning to create relationships and conduct deep product research in the form of pilot programs and early customer relationships with institutions and with the kinds of customers that we have seen traction with in crypto and outside of crypto. So what that means is you'll see a lot of experimentation, a lot of, I assume, announcements of progress in terms of partnerships with individual entities, and updates from our side in terms of how we're rebuilding the product to fit the needs of those folks. I think what you'll also expect to see is, this one's on Unico, but the beginnings of a rebrand effort that we're kicking off across the entire marketing team and the entire Cosmos ecosystem, which I'm really excited about. And you can expect to see us also start to expand our community initiatives in ways that I'm not going to leak yet, but that I think will be really exciting and engaging for everyone who is following along for the story. And then I think in general, just providing more clarity on our roadmap, right? As the reason why we don't want to promise exactly what's getting built is because we shouldn't be the ones deciding that, right? That should be our customers. And we're in the process right now of talking to them, validating And as we get more confident, we'll be releasing more about how we're going to change things and what we're going to build and who our customers are.
Awesome. Closing thoughts, Barry?
Mag put it excellently. I mean, the main thing that I want people to take away from this is that, like, this is a very different, it's a very different change in direction than what has happened in the past in the Cosmos ecosystem, where every change in direction has also been coupled with like a massive change in leadership and turnover of people, where people either are forced out or decide to leave when the thing that they wanted to happen doesn't happen. And we're not going anywhere. We're completely locked in. We're focused. As Mag said, we're iterating and we're shipping and we're building towards new customer categories that we have a lot of confidence we're going to go out and win. But we're not going anywhere. We're really just getting started still.
Amazing. Really appreciate it, folks. Thank you for joining us today. And then just for a good call out as we wrap up, see David, Feo, Cryptorium, everybody, Soft, Norm, that's been tuning in. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being around, commenting, and giving us feedback on the questions. Those are super helpful. Help us prep and understand better. Sisla as well, thank you for popping by. We'll target the last 2 Qs you dropped off the stream since we're closing. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll keep popping updates. So tune along and you know where to find us.
Thanks.